Today, we're going to be discussing the horrifying case of Calix and Bo, two young, vibrant teenagers whose lives were tragically cut short by the one person who should have loved them the most, their own mother, Julie. And when you hear about how she planned these murders, carried them out, and then the reasoning she gave afterwards, your jaw will be on the floor. I know mine was. But before we get into this case, I want to talk about another way I like to dive into a mystery in a more lighthearted and relaxing way, and that is with June's Journey. June's Journey is a hidden object mystery game with a captivating detective story taking you all the way back to the glamour of the 1920s, all with a diverse cast of interesting characters. Each beautifully crafted scene takes you further through a thrilling mystery story that set the main protagonist, June Parker, on a quest to solve the murder of her sister and uncover her family's many secrets. She isn't your typical detective. In fact, she's not a detective at all. She's just a strong-ass woman who uses social and emotional intelligence to improvise a solution on the spot. She's confident and clever, but also friendly enough to listen to people's stories and empower them to fight for themselves. I love a good, strong female lead. In this game, you get to decorate your very own island, take part in the special events to get in-game rewards, and even join a club to play with your friends or other like-minded individuals. I love to play June's Journey at the end of a long work day to relax and unwind, taking my mind off of the stresses in life while keeping me engaged and entertained. I love that you get to solve a mystery in this case, but I also love the strong storyline. You get to explore themes like family relationships, motherhood, love and betrayal, social injustice, and so many more. The story is constantly evolving with new chapters launching every week, so there's always something new to find in the game. So if you want a fun, captivating game to unwind yet keep you engaged, download June's Journey today. Make sure you click the link in the description box below or scan the QR code here to download June's Journey and get started on your mystery solving adventures. Thank you so much to June's Journey for partnering with me on today's video. With all of that being said, let's get into today's mystery. The story of Calix and Bo Schenecker. Julie Power Schenecker was married to Army Colonel Parker Schenecker, who she met in Germany in the late 1980s. Julie was there working as a Russian linguist, collecting intelligence for European agencies by interrogating refugees coming from Eastern European countries. Meanwhile, Parker was stationed there on active deployment, where he too was working for intelligence. After meeting and beginning their relationship, as you can expect with a military couple, they moved around a lot for work. Now, all throughout her life, Julie was known as a high-energy, high achiever who could always get the job done. She was a star athlete in high school who always achieved good grades. She went to a good college where her stellar academic performance continued. Once starting work with the military, she stayed driven and motivated. At the same time, she was always known as having an easy time making friends and keeping up with anything and everything life threw at her. She and Parker were married by 1991, and by September 12, 1994, they gave birth to their first child in Rosenberg, Germany, a daughter who they named Calix. 3 years later, on September 29, 1997, they went on to have their son, Powers, who went by his middle name Bo, in Honolulu, Hawaii. After having their children, Julie made the decision to stay home full-time to raise the kids, while Parker continued working with the Army. Growing up, Calix was known as a model student and an amazing artist. She was known as having an energizing, uplifting spirit. She was a tenacious athlete, excelling at both cross-country and track. She always just had this intense desire to learn and work hard towards her goals. She absolutely loved Harry Potter, which led her to establish a Harry Potter club in her high school in Tampa, Florida, where she was living at the time. When she wasn't running for sport or reading Harry Potter, she worked hard to put her efforts towards making a positive impact on the world. She helped the school raise money for the American Cancer Society and often spoke of how badly she just wanted to help her fellow human. Beau was known as a very likable and easygoing person. He made friends easily, making sure to maintain his relationships even with friends from overseas. He was very intelligent, with this unique ability to retain any information that came his way. He was known to be empathetic, intuitive, and funny. He loved video games, but you would most often find him outside playing soccer, street hockey, or football. He was a natural-born leader, always making a positive impact on his teammates over the years. Overall, both Calix and Beau were known to have positive spirits with so many special and unique personality traits due to them growing up in all sorts of different places around the world. They were loved by so many people from all walks of life. They were your all-American, hard-working, dedicated teenagers who made it a point to live their lives with purpose. By 2011, the family was stationed at the MacDill Air Force Base in Tampa, Florida. At the time, 16-year-old Calix and 13-year-old Beau were known to be active, responsible students. Beau played soccer at Liberty Middle School, while Calix was in the pre-international bachelorette program at King's High School, where she also ran cross country. On the outside, they appeared to be this idyllic military family, a husband and wife working hard to raise their children in a happy, loving home, while also getting to be a part of so many things in the world that other children will never get the chance to experience. But of course, with Parker's active military status, he would often be deployed for long stretches of time, leaving Julie at home alone to raise the kids on her own. This was no easy task, but she always tried her best. By early January of 2011, that is exactly what happened once again. Parker received orders to head to Qatar in the Middle East, where he would be stationed for a few weeks. This, again, wasn't anything out of the norm for the family, but the timing wasn't ideal. The family had been going to group counseling for a few weeks due to some growing tension within the family. Calix and Beau were getting older and were growing into their own people with their own opinions and attitudes. Meanwhile, they were under a lot of stress while Parker was gone and Julie was left on her own to care for these growing teens. So before Parker left, he asked Julie if she needed help with watching the children while he was gone. He knew that she had been struggling a bit and wanted to offer support somehow, some way, but she said no. She said, "I've got this." Little did he know, though, that she had other plans in mind, something that she couldn't do if there was anyone else around. Something that would get rid of all the stress she was facing once and for all. By the morning of January 28th, 2011, Julie's mother, who was living in Texas at the time, called the Tampa Police Department to request a welfare check for Julie and her kids. She said that Julie had been experiencing a very serious bout of depression and had been complaining nonstop about her children. When she woke up that morning, she found some very concerning emails sent to her by Julie. By around 9 p.m. on the night of January 27th, she sent an email to her parents, brother, and sister with the subject of, "I love you all." The message was pretty incoherent and full of typos, but from what Julie's mother could make out, Julie was thanking her family members for their support and guidance, but there were also undertones of something more sinister. In part, she wrote, "You've always been there for me, giving me support and guidance that I've needed and couldn't have lived 50 years without," going on to say, "It's really difficult because I'm so sick mentally. I do the jobs to do. I minimally take care of the kids, sadly to say. Beau has developed Calix's attitude, makes me cry every evening, seeing what they've become, as far as a 180 from their former darling selves. I will end this soon, though. I am at my wit's end." If some of this email didn't make total sense, it's because I was reading directly from the email, which was relatively incoherent and kind of hard to read. But obviously, this immediately set off red flags when her mother read it, so by 7:39 a.m., shortly after receiving the call from Julie's mother, officers arrived at the Schenecker home. As soon as they arrived, they found Julie lying unconscious on the back porch. She was wearing a white bathrobe which appeared to be covered in dried blood. Officers managed to wake her up, helping her up to her feet before asking where the children were. She replied, "They're inside." She then apparently asked one of the officers for their gun or to go get hers so that she could finish the job. At that time, it was believed that Julie was passed out after trying to overdose on medication. Those officers then took Julie inside to speak, while other officers went around the house to search for the children. Officers made their way into the garage of the home where the family's minivan was parked, and to their shock and horror, they found then 13-year-old Beau sitting slumped over in the passenger seat of the car. He was not moving and was covered by a blanket. Upon removing the blanket, they found that Beau had been shot 2 times, once to his head and once to his face. Of course, he was already dead at the scene. They then made their way throughout the rest of the home and upstairs to Calix's bedroom. There, they also found her body, which was lying in her bed and also covered by a blanket. She, too, had been shot twice in her head, with one of the shots going directly through her teeth and tongue. Upon further examination, they found that Calix also had some scrapes on her shins. There was also a trail of blood that led from her computer in her room to her bed, suggesting that she had been shot while sitting at the computer before she was dragged to her bed and covered with a blanket. While still at the home, officers asked Julie what happened, and she immediately admitted that she killed her children, though she didn't give too much detail as to why initially. All she said was that they had been mouthing off to her. At that time, Julie was arrested and taken to the police station for further questioning. During this interview, officers made sure to ask her if she understood them and understood her rights. She agreed, saying that she was ready to talk. However, throughout the interview, Julie fluctuated between sounding relatively alert and coherent to sounding slurred and confused. She started by telling officers about how she had a long-standing history of depression and bipolar disorder, for which she took about 10 different medications. She said that she had spent the past 8 weeks in bed after suffering from a car accident. Back in early November of 2010, she was under the influence of her medications, including Oxycontin, when she crashed. After the accident, Parker took her to rehab for her drug habit, which is what led to her accident in the first place. She spent 21 days there before returning home. After returning home, she spent the following weeks from late November up until January of 2011 lying in bed. At some point, she asked the officers if her kids are coming in later, to which the officer said they'll talk about that later, before guiding her back to the topic at hand.
I know the reason we're here to talk to you, we want to find out what happened yesterday, what happened last night, what happened this morning from you yourself.
Yeah. Are my kids coming in later?
I'm sorry?
Are my kids coming in later?
Well, we'll talk about all that.
They asked her what happened the prior day, January 27th. At this point, she said that she picked Calix up from school that day before dropping her back off at track practice. She went and picked Calix up from practice before taking her home. After dropping off Calix, she got Beau in the car to drop him off at soccer practice. But while in the car, she said that Beau started getting mouthy, so she got pissed and pulled out a gun. Beau yelled at her to put the gun away, but she didn't. Instead, his mother turned the car around and started heading home before she shot him in the side of the head. She then shot him once again in the mouth. After shooting her son, she parked the car back in the garage, leaving his body in the passenger seat. She then headed inside the home, intending to do the same thing to her daughter. When speaking about Calix, she said that she just toppled over. It was the last straw. Her 16-year-old daughter was so mouthy, it was just ridiculous. She said that Calix called her stupid for forgetting to get the mail. Calix has been so nasty, so mouthy, so disrespectful. She had completely changed within the past 2 years and was really upsetting her. Now, once they had returned home from track practice, Calix went upstairs into her room where she sat on the computer to do some homework. As she did her homework after returning back from shooting Beau, Julie said that she went up into the room, came up behind her daughter with her .380 pistol in hand. She then shot her in the back of the head first before then shooting her in the mouth. Julie went on to explain that as Calix started to become more nasty, Bo started doing the same. They both had such bad attitudes, always talking back. She was tired of it. She explained that she shot both of them in their mouths because she was tired of their sass. They grew too sassy for her to handle, so she shot both of them in their mouths to shut them up for good. She also said that if her husband was home, she probably would have killed him too. After explaining this, she said that she wanted to kill herself and had wanted to for a while. When officers asked her what should happen to her because of what she did, she just said that she didn't want to go to jail. She doesn't want to go to court. Then, after a bit of small talk, the officer checked in with Julie to check if she was still understanding the situation. He asked if she knew where her children were, what their condition was. She answered that Bo was in the car and Calix is in bed. They are in horrible condition. When he asked if they were alive or dead, she said that she didn't know, but hopes they are dead. He then confirmed to Julie that they are in fact dead.
I just toppled over the last straw. My daughter, my 16-year-old, was just mouthy.
Okay.
And it's really ridiculous.
Okay.
She calls me names.
What kind of names she call you?
Stupid.
What happened when you got back to the house? Was she being mouthy with you there?
Yeah, she's always mouthy.
Okay. And you said it was the last straw. It really pissed you off? Is that what happened?
She said, when I get out of here, I'm never going to come back and see you.
Okay.
She changed for the last 2 years.
She really upset you?
Yeah, I mean,
Okay. Yeah.
Kids do that when they get older.
Yeah. They break your heart sometimes. What happened when you got back to the house after track? What happened?
I came up behind her.
What was she doing?
Hold on.
She was doing homework on the computer? Yeah. You came up behind her with what?
With a 38.
Okay. And what happened?
I shot her in the back of the head.
Because she was running her mouth at you?
Yeah. And then I shot her, I think, in the mouth.
Okay.
That's what I wanted to do.
Why did you want to shoot her in the mouth?
Because it angers me so much.
Her mouth angers you?
Yeah.
Okay, what happened with Bo? How did that all happen?
He's copying what Calix does.
Oh, so he's starting to act up and talk back too?
He's also
Okay.
sassy.
Okay. And then where did you shoot Bo?
Yeah.
With that 38?
In the side of the head.
Okay.
And then I did his mouth too.
Oh, you shot him twice in the head?
Yeah.
Okay.
Because they're too sassy.
Do you know where they're at right now?
Yeah.
Tell me where.
Goes in the van on the right side.
Okay, and where is your daughter?
In the bedroom.
Where at?
On the bed.
Do you know what kind of condition they're in?
They're a mess.
They're a mess?
Yeah.
Are they alive or dead?
I don't know.
What do you think?
I hope so.
You hope what?
I hope they're dead.
You hope they're dead?
Yeah. What do you think?
They're dead.
When the officer asked what happened with her suicide attempt, basically why it didn't work, Julie said that she kept hearing noises from the kids, like gurgling noises. So she went back to their bodies to cover both of them in blankets and to apologize for her behavior. She also mentioned at one point that she tried manipulating Calix's face into a smile, but obviously it didn't stay that way. She said that she was going to shoot herself too, but she fell asleep instead, being rudely awoken by the officers who found her. She mentioned that in the weeks before the murders, she had been writing a journal about how she was feeling and what she was planning to do. The last entry she wrote was shortly after she had shot them. Then, as we know, she had taken some of her medication, including Oxycontin, and fell asleep on the back porch where she had gone to smoke. After this interview, of course, officers charged Julie with 2 counts of first-degree murder. It was clear that she was not mentally well. She had been suffering with some sort of mental illness, but the question was just how much of a role did it play in what she did? And was it so bad to the point where she didn't realize what she was doing? That is what psychiatrists worked to figure out as she awaited her trial in jail. Also, after finding the bodies of the children, officers did contact Parker in Qatar, telling him that he needs to come home immediately. He did just that, and of course, he was met with his new reality. His wife murdered their 2 children who he loved so very much. He had always known that Julie was struggling with life, struggling with her children, but there was no way that he could have known just how far she would take it. He was obviously devastated and wanted to do anything he could to understand what happened and to help investigators get a deeper look into the disturbed mind of his wife. Of course, as all of this was going on, officers went back to the home to continue their investigation, and there they found a lot that gave them much more insight into Julie's state of mind leading to shooting her children. Upon entering the home, investigators first found 2 sticky notes that Julie left behind. They were addressed to friends, and the other was addressed to carpool. After moving to Tampa, Calix and Bo started carpooling with their neighbors, who would take turns driving the kids to practices and events. In the weeks after the accident, the neighbor was the one driving them around most of the time. The note informed friends and carpool that they had gone on a trip to New York, so they weren't home. There was then a 3rd note left in the home as well, which read, DNR, or do not resuscitate, donate my body to science. Then they found that in the family day planner, Julie wrote a note on the day of Tuesday the 1st, which said, Bo is in the van on the way to practice. Calix is in her bed. Tried to make her more comfortable. This was most likely a note to her husband so that he could find their bodies once he returned home. On her computer, they had also found a bunch of emails that Julie had been writing back and forth between Parker, her brother, and her mother in the months and weeks leading to the murders. Some of the emails sent by Parker outline just how bad Julie's mental health had gotten over the course of their 20-year marriage. Parker wrote about how Julie was broken long before he met her. She had always dealt with alcohol and drug abuse. She was prescribed all sorts of medication for her bipolar disorder, which led to other issues such as tardive dyskinesia, which is a movement disorder caused by long-term use of certain medications and can explain why some of her emails were so jumbled and incoherent. He lived with her and supported her even though she spent weeks or months at a time in bed, not moving and not speaking. She would allegedly abuse Parker, slapping and hitting him in front of the kids. Then she could hit or slap her children as well. She often drove recklessly. Oftentimes, her children didn't feel safe having Julie driving them. There were times when Bo would flat out refuse to ride with Julie to practices because she'll almost hit mailboxes and turns out right in front of cars. Some of the emails also detailed how strained her relationship was with her daughter. Again, Calix was starting to act out, talk back, and give attitude. Julie was having a hard time dealing with that and took it very personally. She never really understood that Calix was a teenager, and most teenagers will act out and may say some hurtful things. That's just a part of life. Then, as I stated before, it was the one email to her brother and mother on the night of January 27th that alerted them into thinking that something was wrong. Her complaining about Calix and Bo, saying that she was at her wit's end, but that it would all be over soon. That is what led to Julie's mother calling 911. But they also found that on that same night, on January 27th, she also emailed her husband, Parker, who again was in Qatar on deployment. She first wrote, "Get home soon, we're waiting for you." In another email she sent a few minutes later, she continues, "Calix has all A's and B's. Bo has 2 C's, which will cross out a couple A's he has, but still a 3. It's thought that these emails were sent after she murdered her children. Along with the information found on Julie's computer, They also found her journal lying on the bed where she wrote multiple entries in the weeks and days leading to the murders, as well as immediately after. Once again, they give us a lot of information about what she was going through mentally at that time. On one page, she wrote a list of all the things she didn't like about Calix. She wrote that Calix once sprayed her with Lysol after coming in from smoking. Calix apparently told Julie, "If I commit suicide, it's your fault." She wrote that Calix was a bully and that Bo had become her ally. On another page, she wrote only, "You're a failure." Another entry warns of the coming massacre, which she planned for Thursday. She also wrote some pages about what to do with her and the kids after they were found dead. She said that she had no idea where the funeral services should be done, but offered a few suggestions. She said that she wanted their bodies to be donated to science, but asked that she later be cremated and have her ashes mixed with her children's. She wanted her clothes to be given away and wanted Parker to inform her friends and family of her passing before it made the news. Then, in another entry, she wrote out her meticulous plan for how she was going to murder her children, including purchasing the gun, in what order she will shoot the kids, and how she plans to take her own life. Once again, it's a little bit hard to read this note. It is in her handwriting, so there was a couple words that were difficult to make out, so I did my best, but here's what I got from the note. "I was hoping it would be tonight. I can't stand it waiting for 5 days. I will purchase the gun on Thursday, then get Bo into my room for sleeping in good night. Sleep in daybed. Calix, she will get it first. Don't know whether I'll first turn on the light to blind or just react to having me in her bedroom. I'm nervous. She took too many bullets. I don't want to have to reload bullets for Bo's. If Bo sleeps upstairs, I don't know if he'll hear the shots at Calix. Hopefully he'll sleep in my bedroom then upstairs. Can't took Bo to be woken up by gunshots. Lastly, I'll take my own life. I'll have my oxys, maybe with some white wine." Then she writes about how the murders went down after going through with it. In one part, she wrote, "I have really lost my mind. I'm sad, my 2 babies. It was too easy to take them out." Continuing, "I offed Bo on the way to practice. I accidentally shot the window, then shot him. One in the side of the head and one in the mouth because he became so mouthy, just like Calix. I walked up without Calix reacting and shot her in the right temple. Then I shot her in the mouth, her sassy little mouth." Another page details how she was feeling mentally. This entry also appears to have been written after the murders, but I'm not completely sure. She also writes about how she wanted to save her own children from the mental illness they likely inherited. It says, "I am so tired and sick. I have to get psyched up for a shower before track pickup at 4:30. Parker, I'm sorry, so sorry I didn't know what to say, but I sensed a divorce was inevitable. I can't live alone. In my last 7 weeks in bed, no one came into the bedroom to see how I was. You didn't teach the kids to become compassionate. Neither were you. I just needed a little chat. My meds never kicked in. Might have made a difference. I thought the doctor tried hard and Beth was tough, held me accountable. Ma, couldn't do it. I'm not an alcoholic. Didn't need a detox and used oxys 1 or 2 for pain, as prescribed. I should have went to a psych ward instead of alcohol/addict ward. I admit my brain is trashed." Going on to say, "If you wonder why I decided to take out the kids, it's to protect them from embarrassing them for the rest of their lives. It was my time to go. Heaven is waiting for me. I have done my job on this earth. The best job I ever had was having/bringing up my babies. This is why I had to bring them on with me. It's too possible they've inherited the DNA and their lives depressed or bipolar. I believe I saved them from the pain." Now, I get a few things from this part of her journal. It's honestly hard to tell if she's being genuine or not, because as we saw before, the first thing she said was that she shot them because they were too sassy. Now, all of a sudden, she shot them because she was trying to save them. To me, I think part of the reason she wrote this part was because after shooting her children, she might have realized, like, oh my God, everyone's going to think I'm a monster. Even if she did kill herself, everybody's going to see me so negatively. Everyone's going to think I'm a terrible person. So she wanted to make sure she also wrote this part so that maybe people would look at her more as a hero and less as a villain who just murdered her children because they were sassing her. But let me know what you think about this part. Do you think that she's being genuine, or do you think she's kind of writing it as a cop-out? Let me know. Now, along with the journal and emails on her computers, detectives also found over 500 different prescription pill bottles in the home, including antipsychotic medication, lithium for bipolar disorder, oxycodone, and a blood thinning medication, which was one of the medications she had taken after shooting her children in this, I guess, attempt to take her own life. Now, clearly, we can see based on all of this that Julie is fighting a battle in her own head. She is obviously mentally ill and has a lot of conflicting thoughts. She's clearly struggling. However, while we know this to be true, it still appears that she was coherent enough to plan the murders. Think logically about how to do it, when to do it, and what could go wrong. This wasn't some spur-of-the-moment break-in insanity that drove her to go on a rampage. This was a thought-out objective, which she planned out over the course of multiple days. At this point, detectives had a pretty good idea of what happened and why. She murdered her children partially because she was tired of them. She was tired of the disrespect, tired of the attitudes. At the same time, she felt that her marriage with Parker was crumbling. She thought that divorce was inevitable, and she resented him. She hated him. She had every intention of him coming home to discover what she did, making him suffer immeasurable amounts of pain and anguish. The investigation lasted for about 3 years, all while Julie was evaluated by mental health experts to determine her capability to stand trial. Because even though she admitted to officers what she did and why, she still pleaded not guilty due to reason of insanity. But it was ultimately determined that Julie was mentally fit to stand trial. So by May of 2014, Julie's trial for the murders of her 2 teenage children, Calix and Beau, began. The prosecution in this case decided not to go for the death penalty, instead opting for life in prison. They argued that there was enough evidence to prove that she was mentally ill, but not legally insane. In order to say that she was legally insane to the point that she can't be held accountable for her actions, it had to be proven that Julie didn't know that killing her kids was wrong. Clearly, she did know that it was wrong, as we can see via her own journal entries and the police interview. At the trial, the prosecution argued that Julie meticulously planned the brutal murder of her 2 teenage children out of anger and resentment towards them and her husband. One, again, because they were mouthy and she was tired of dealing with it. But she was again also resentful towards her husband and had every intention of him coming home and finding his entire family dead. We can see that because she literally emailed him after murdering the children saying, "Can't wait for you to come home." The prosecution went over the emails and the journal entries, which painted a picture of a severely depressed mother who is having a lot of trouble dealing with this stage in her children's lives. They were no longer the sweet, adorable little babies she once knew. They were growing up, and just as a lot of other teenagers do, they were going through a rebellious stage. They developed an attitude. And you know what? If you've ever dealt with teenage girls especially, they're mean. I don't know if I was that mean. I hope I wasn't. I guess I'd have to ask my mom. I remember certain times where maybe I was a little bit rude to her. One time I told her that she had a mustache. And I think about that almost every day, and I feel so bad about it. But like, almost every teenager is kind of mean. You just have to deal with it. And God bless every parent who goes through that stage, because I know it's difficult, but you get through it. But either way, for Julie, instead of seeking therapy, asking her husband to get someone to come in the house and help with the kids or the house while he was gone, or literally asking for any other type of help, she chose to murder her kids and then herself so that she could just be done with it all. She bought the gun and was frustrated with the waiting period, but that didn't stop her. She wrote out exactly how she was going to do it and followed through with at least a similar version of her original plan, except she didn't actually end up killing herself. Instead, she fell asleep, which leads me to question whether she actually intended to kill herself or if she kind of just backed out at the last minute. I think she did have thoughts of taking her own life, but I don't know if she actually wanted to go through with it in that moment. The prosecution brought forward her husband, who testified about how, yes, she had been mentally ill all throughout her life. It was something that he dealt with all throughout their almost 20 years of marriage. She had bouts where she would abuse him and the kids, and her behaviors often got out of control. He tried getting her into therapy, and as we discussed earlier, he did get her into a drug rehab program, but it seems that maybe that's not what she needed per her own journal entries. He knew that she was struggling, but again, never knew just how badly or what she would do because of it. There was also mention that he never had access to any of her records, any of her psychological records, or anything to do with her mental health care because of HIPAA regulations. She would never put him down as someone who was allowed to have it. So it did seem that there was this aspect of her at least trying to hide part of what she was going through from her husband.
So they had a strained relationship in the fall of 2010.
But Colonel Parker Schenecker tells jurors he had no reservations about leaving his then-wife with his children when he left for Afghanistan.
I reminded her I'm leaving in a few days, just wanted to make sure that everything was okay. Are you going to be okay with me being gone for a couple of weeks?
Okay. What did the defendant say?
Well, and then I added on to that, I said, if there's a problem, I can ask Nancy to come in, or I can find someone else to come in. The defendant at that time looked me square in the eye and said, I got this.
The prosecution also brought forward some forensic evidence which showed that her children's blood was on her bathrobe. Her DNA and prints were on the gun as well, as, we don't really need to question that, but it's just to sort of tie everything together. The medical examiner also testified about the brutality of Calix and Beau's injuries. Again, they were each shot twice, once in the head and once in the face. Based on how the bullets landed and how they were shot, the ME felt that they were both completely taken by surprise when they were shot. They never saw it coming. The prosecution said that Julie is a cold-blooded killer who viciously murdered her children to shut them up. On the other hand, of course, the defense argued that Julie was mentally insane at the time of the murders. They brought forward court documents which showed a long history of mental health struggles. They said that Julie was abused as a child, being molested by an adult when she was around 6 or 7, I believe. This led her to developing unhealthy coping mechanisms and obviously lifelong trauma. All the way back in the 90s, she was diagnosed with depression and bipolar and was medicated for it. She's been on that medication for years, only stopping when she was pregnant or nursing. By 2001, she suffered such a severe bout of depression that she was hospitalized for 9 months. Around that time, she was also diagnosed with schizoaffective disorder in addition to her existing severe depression and bipolar. Along with her struggles with mental health, she had also struggled with substance use. She was taking oxycodone to deal with her pain and drank heavily. Again, as we saw from her own journal entries, she didn't think very highly of herself. She was bedridden for weeks at a time, feeling that her family didn't care about her. She had a very negative self-image, calling herself a failure. She couldn't handle the pressures of being a mother to growing teenagers. To me, I do think that Calix and Beau may have been acting out or defying their mother maybe even more than the average teen. Maybe their attitudes got really bad. But from a teenager's perspective, they're seeing their mother lay in bed for days at a time. She's hitting them and their father. She's driving recklessly and putting their lives in danger. She's abusing drugs and alcohol. I'd imagine she didn't always have the nicest words for them either. So yeah, a teenager whose brain isn't fully developed may respond with insults or acting out as a defense mechanism. They don't understand that she's got her own struggles, her own mental health issues, because again, as a teenager, you may not be thinking about that. All you're seeing is that your mom is kind of mean to you, is hitting you and abusing her husband and your father, and is just a difficult person to be around. So they may have been acting out because of that. Maybe they were acting out to get attention from their mother, who didn't seem to care. Maybe they were trying to fight back against someone who was hurting them physically or emotionally. It may not have been the right way to cope, but they're teenagers, and Julie is the adult. As a full-grown woman with 2 children, it doesn't matter how bad your mental health gets. You should be able to self-reflect enough to understand when you are too overwhelmed to ask for help. I don't blame Julie for having trouble coping with motherhood, but she had so many options and so many people willing to step in. From my understanding, it seemed like Parker dealt with a lot over 20 years, and he always stayed by her side. So she had options. She had people that were willing to step in. Basically, in their closing arguments, the defense claimed that her mental health was so horrible that she truly didn't understand the gravity of her actions, and she only killed her children because she was mentally insane. They said, quote, "Her mind is clouded. She didn't choose this illness. It chose her. When she wasn't sick, she was a good mother." The prosecution closed by saying that Julie was desperate, depressed, angry, but very determined. She was tired of her children while also feeling that divorce from her husband was inevitable, so she wanted revenge. She wanted to make him and them suffer. They continued, quote, "These were deliberate, well-planned, well-implemented, and well-concealed homicides." After closing arguments, the jury was off for deliberation, and it only took them 2 hours to come back with their verdict. They found that Julie did know what she was doing and did know that it was wrong. As a result, they found her guilty of both murders. At her sentencing hearing, Julie apologized for her actions. She acknowledged that she destroyed so many lives, not just her family and friends, but the community as a whole. She admitted that she shot her son and daughter, but said she didn't know why, though she's going to have plenty of time to think about it. She said that she's ready to accept whatever sentence comes her way.
Your Honor, I'm prepared. I'm prepared, and I accept your sentence. I apologize. I apologize to everybody in this courtroom who I have broken. Their lives I have destroyed. I hope they can collect themselves as best as possible. All of us. Not just this courtroom. Anybody who knew our family, Felix and Bo, our children's friends, teachers, coaches, our relatives, Felix and Bo's aunts, cousins, grandparents, uncles, nieces, nephews. Everyone has been so deeply affected, and I understand there are people who are affected by this that may have just read about it in the paper. Maybe a child looked at their mommy and said, "Mommy, are you ever going to shoot me?" I know that this could have happened, and I apologize for what happened, what I did. I take responsibility. I was there. I know. I know I shot my son and daughter. I don't know why, but I have a period of time to try to understand that. Your Honor, the judicial system in the United States is the best in the world. We don't lash our women 125 times for driving when they're not supposed to drive. I'm proud to stand here in front of you, as I understand you might have be prior service as well. And to serve my country, and I proudly said the first code of conduct as a soldier. In '83, it said I said, I'm an American fighting man, serving in the forces which protect my country and our way of life, and I am prepared to give my life in their defense. I said that proudly. It changed. We're no longer fighting men. We're fighting in the forces which protect our country. I trust and I believe that in you, what you've done. You run a great court. I have no experience, but from what I've seen, you control the court tremendously well. I thank my attorneys who have supported me, and I trusted them, and they worked so well, and all those people behind me on my team put in many, many hours on this case. I will never be able to repay all these people. I have no way to repay but to say thank you. So, thank you to the entire American judicial system. I am not playing, Your Honor. That is heartfelt.
At the end of the hearing, she was handed 2 concurrent life sentences. After being handed her sentence, Julie's husband, Parker, spoke about how grateful he is that this long process is now over. He thanked the justice system and wanted to remind everyone that this case is about his 2 children, Bo and Calix. When he speaks, he does so in a very matter-of-fact way, but it's said that he's always like that, which definitely makes sense. He is a military man, and they're not known for being the most expressive emotionally.
So first of all, I'd like to thank the greater Tampa Bay community for their love and support of Calix and Bo over the past 3 years. It's been a trying time for all of us, and you've continued to honor us with your kindness. I'll start with what I've said many times in the past, which is I've defended our justice system for nearly 30 years, and I deeply believe that we have the best system in the world. Having participated in the process over the last 3 weeks has confirmed the fairness of our legal system. Today's decision, for many reasons, gives my family a great sense of relief. As I've consistently mentioned over the past 3 years, the most important thing in all of this is Calix and Bo, my lovely children, my smart, beautiful, loved and missed daughter and son. Giving voice to them has been my priority throughout this entire process, and their voices have been heard due to the efforts of many. And while this decision doesn't bring my children back, it does give our family an opportunity to move forward and honor their memory with the important work that we've been doing with Calix and Bo Schenecker Memorial Fund and remembering how they lived. Thank you.
I also do want to note that since the murder of his children, he has gotten a divorce from Julie. Additionally, Parker has used this horrific tragedy to do something positive. He started the Calix and Bo Memorial Fund. The fund's goal is aimed at promoting the arts and altruism in today's youth by allowing them to live their dreams through character development education and scholarships. As of today, they've granted over $70,000 in scholarships for students and grants for nonprofits. If you want to find out more about the foundation, please check out the link below to their website, which is listed in the description box. I always truly admire anyone who uses such unthinkable, horrific tragedy to try and do good for others. But on that note, that is all the information I have on today's case. This one was truly such a difficult case to research. Truly, it's so hard to understand how a mother could do such horrific things to her own children and be so cold and careless after. It's unbelievable. I'm just happy that she's serving time in prison and will never be released. She has to live every day with the torment and guilt of what she did, and she truly deserves nothing more. But with that, now I want to hear what you all think. Do you think the jury got this one right, or was she truly insane at the time of the murders? What do you think her true motive was? Let's discuss this and any other thoughts you have in the comments below. If you like this video, please make sure to go ahead and leave this video a thumbs up and subscribe to my channel. I put out new true crime and mystery videos every single week. Don't forget to turn the notification bell to on so you don't miss out on any of my future videos. Also, make sure you go ahead and use my link down below or scan the QR code to download June's Journey today. It's one of my favorite games. You will not regret it. Make sure to follow me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and Spotify. All will be linked down below. And if you have any case suggestions, please make sure to fill out my Google form, which is also listed down below. With that, I hope you guys have an amazing week. Stay safe, stay healthy, and I hope to see you next time. Bye.